song, and I'll sing this song, and I'll sing this song, and wait for you to catch up with me, so you don't miss any of my dubious wisdom on gardening. Dubious wisdom on gardening. Dubious wisdom on gardening. Oh, dubious wisdom on gardening. Welcome to Alan, welcome to Danny M, who made it at the beginning actually. Welcome to Mary Swanson, Chris Dixon at the White North Forge. Welcome to Sea City Chef, welcome to Vicky Brushwood again, and welcome to Food Bear, and welcome to Johnny Hatchings, who's finally here at the start. Here at the start of the Goodstream. Guys, I just wanted to play that song a little bit at the beginning, just to kind of hold everybody off, you know, because they all run ads at the beginning and people are still showing up and all this kind of thing. And I know that my own timing is awkward. I mean, what is it? It's like 9:45 Eastern, but you know, some people are in Japan. Is there anybody in Japan tonight? Oh man. Hey, Free Gen X Bear. New tunes for old logos. Nice to see you again. Dieter Brunt. Taco promotions. Look at, do you even have to promote tacos? I mean, the press on tacos is like, whoa. Or maybe that's why. Maybe you promote other things and kind of bring them up to the taco level. I get it. No, I'm seeing it. There's some, yeah. Taco promotion says, got nothing but white sand in South Florida, working hard to turn piece by piece into rich dark black. I have some quail working above my compost pile and so much to come. Very good. Very good. All right, Tomicado, you go Ono. That's nice. Florida here. Taco promotion says, can you tell me a great way to encourage passion fruit vines? Yeah, you want to encourage them to follow their passion. We're going to talk about following your dreams in a little bit, but first, here's another song by the Police, and after that, we'll be right back with a story you won't want to miss. This is Delilah. Delilah. Encouraging passion fruit vines, you know, if they have decent soil, regular water, and warm weather, it makes a big difference. They're very vigorous growers if they have enough nutrition, a good balanced nutrition, probably plenty of compost. In the volcanic soil back on the island where I used to live, before I decided to trade it all and go to Alabama. Before I decided to go to Alabama, well, we had some real good soil. So I would just feed it well. But Tucker Promotions, this ties into what we're going to talk about here. Got nothing but white sand in South Florida, working hard to turn piece by piece rich dark black. So, you know, that's the soil. I mean, you could barely call it soil, but that's what I grew up with. I was born in Plantation General Hospital in 1979. And I started gardening when I was 6 years old. And we thought, well, you know, I guess you cut a little area into the sand and you pour some potting soil on it, and maybe that's what it needs, you know? I grew some really lousy gardens, but year after year I tried different amendments. I threw in compost, I made compost, I buried kitchen scraps. I remember I buried potato peelings out there, and I actually had a potato plant come up, and I couldn't figure out what it was because it's the first potato I'd ever seen growing as a kid. But it came up from some of the peelings, and I thought it was so cool. Once I realized it was a potato, because I dug this weird plant part way up, and I saw, oh, there's like a bit of a peeling under there. Oh my goodness, that grew out of a potato peel. That's an actual potato plant. Crazy. You know, I did not come from an agricultural background, and South Florida is not the place to try and do traditional vegetable gardening, which is what I was attempting to do. It's not easy to do that because it is basically just white sand. Now, my great-grandfather was from upstate New York, rich glacial soils. He grew a garden that was probably at least a quarter acre, maybe more. Rows of different types of berries. He had blackberries and raspberries, if I remember correctly. Probably had strawberries too, I don't remember that. He had some beautiful sunflowers growing here and there. And he said he didn't even bother planting sunflowers anymore because the birds would always leave some around his yard and he just let them grow where they grew. But great big beets and beautiful, rich, flavored potatoes. You don't know what potatoes are like until you have potatoes that have been grown in good soil. There is a potatoey flavor to potatoes that you don't get. Best French fries ever. You know, so when you're dealing with really poor soil and you're trying to learn in poor soil, it's an endless frustration. So year after year I poured different things in there. I tried chemical fertilizers, I put organic amendments, I put, you know, buried scraps. I remember burying peat moss out there. I made compost piles and buried, you know, put compost all over the ground. I would mulch with grass clippings. But you know, you go back and look at that area a year after the garden is gone and it's white sand again. It's incredible because you're fighting geology. The big problem with sand is you're fighting the underlying geology. The exchange capacity is not good. It's very high levels of leaching that take place. There's not a lot for the plants to grab onto and use. So, you know, it's not ideal. And what I have now is not at all ideal. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. I mean, you guys saw my soil test probably because I posted it. I posted it on the blog and I posted it in at least one video. But I do believe you can convert it into soil. And not only that, I believe you could probably convert it long term. Now here's the problem with organic matter in sandy soil. It just burns away. It just washes away, it blows away, it leaches through, it gets eaten by the soil life, and it is gone. It does not stick. So some years ago, I did some work in my parents' backyard when I planted the Great South Florida Food Forest Project, and some of you guys got to see when I did my garden tour last year. I did a talk in that backyard, and you could dig in back there and find black, crumbly, humusy soil that does not look anything like the soil that is in the pathways or any other part of the yard. It's incredible how different it looks. But that soil is maintained through regular chopping and dropping, and it was initially established by dropping a couple of feet worth of all the neighbor's yard waste and just letting it rot down. So for those of you who think I don't like deep mulching or I'm like picking on your preferred method or something like that, I'm not. It totally works. It's just not something I always do in my vegetable gardens, particularly when I'm trying to get started fast and I want to put a big garden in. You can build these things, you know, a bit at a time, and in that backyard it was such a small space, it was really easy to just stack a huge amount of organic matter. I mean we got rough stuff like pieces of Schefflera tree trunks, palm fronds, coconut husks, just everything, all the yard waste bin stuff, sticks, you know. We just piled up organic matter, and because it's warm and humid there, that stuff rots fast, and it made a semblance of soil. But I guarantee you, if you cleared that mulch away and just let the ground continue without doing any more chop and drop, without chopping anything down and throwing it on there, without gathering any more biomass, if you were to just scrape that top layer off and expose that pretty dark soil that's underneath, it would disappear really fast because you're still fighting geology. So what I had been thinking about for the 5 years that I was away, almost 5 years, almost 4.5 years, I guess. The time that I was away and not gardening in sand, I was gardening in clay loam. I kept thinking about it because I was still writing articles for Florida Gardening, and I was still working on books for Florida Gardening. While I was down there, I wrote Florida Survival Gardening, and I started revamping the Create Your Own Florida Food Forest book. What I've been thinking on, I've been thinking on the concept of long-term improvement of sand. And one of the things that has some potential is biochar. I don't think biochar is a great way to fight climate change. I don't think we should like chop down the forests and burn them and bury them, or like deliberately grow massive amounts of stuff just to burn it and bury it. It doesn't really make sense to me. It seems like it's just a tiny drop in the bucket. So these promises of like biochar, we could sequester a bazillion tons of carbon. I don't see any need to do that or any reason to do that. I actually kind of like a little higher carbon dioxide in the air. I mean, if that makes me a heretic, fine, but plants love carbon dioxide. So a little higher carbon dioxide levels means more lush plant growth. I'm okay with that. And if the sea levels decide to rise, I'm about an hour inland. I wouldn't mind being a little closer to the beach. But no, I'm just kidding. That would be so sad. So sad. But the terra preta idea, the terra preta soils of the Amazon, where you have this really poor soil area, and then there are these soils that are really deep and they're full of lots of carbon and lots of bits of pottery, chunks, and burned bone and all this stuff. And it's this soil that is super rich and fertile hundreds and hundreds of years after it was first created. And they think, well, did they do it on purpose, or did they just camp there and burn stuff for a huge amount of time? Did they slash and burn the forest over and over and over again and keep tilling the carbon in to make it rich? There's a lot of debate over what it is that made it happen and why it continues, why it sticks around. And it seems like there is a secret that is different than the biochar and the pottery chunks. Something else was going on with that soil that we don't know yet, because so far as I know, nobody has successfully created what is actually terra preta. You'll see people saying, trying to make terra preta or making terra preta at home, but it's not the same. The terra preta soils apparently continue to grow. There is some sort of an ongoing reaction in those soils, whether biological or geological or something, that is continuing. The soils are continuing to grow in their location and replenish themselves, which is really bizarre. And so we don't exactly understand how that works. Though I wish somebody would just fly me a ton of that stuff here so I could put it in my backyard. I'd love to get some. But carbon seems to be part of it, and the cell structure of charcoal or biochar, all that huge amount of surface area and the potential, the high exchange potential for grabbing onto nutrients, for providing a bunker for fungi and soil life bacteria, it's fascinating to me. And I have not done any serious experiments with it. I have made it and thrown it in my compost piles and kind of mixed it in, but I have not done any side by side. And Stephen Edholm, if you guys are not subscribed to Stephen Edholm, whose channel is Skill Cult, on, and it's spelled Skill Cult. Stephen Edholm has done experiments with biochar, and he actually just tilled the charcoal right into some of his beds at different levels, like 5%, 10%, and then 0%. And he grew leeks in it, and he tried to grow lettuces in it. In the first year or two, he had terrible yields. Because what the carbon does is, just like activated charcoal, if you ever get an upset stomach, or you happen to accidentally drink some strychnine, the first thing your mom does is say, here, take some activated charcoal to soak up the toxin. So charcoal is well known for being able to soak up a lot of material. So what happened was he tilled it into his soil, and sure enough, it soaked up most of the soil fertility, probably all the nitrogen it could grab and everything else that it could grab in the soil. Man, like a magnet, it soaked it up. So he had terrible yields. But then something happened. After a year or two, it stabilized, and then things started to grow better. And he's getting, after a few years, he was getting, he had this bed, and he shows with his leeks, right? So he's growing leeks, and these leeks are like this big on the high carbon bed, this big on the medium carbon bed, and then like this big on the the control bed. So he said, we were talking some years ago, and he's like, you've got to experiment with this stuff. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense in perfect, awesome volcanic soil that I had to experiment with it. But I kept playing with it in my head and going, man, I wish I had sand again. I wish I had some awful stuff so I could experiment with biochar in a situation where it might actually do some good. So I made a little cone pit in the ground, which I will do a video on and explain it because it's a super, super simple way to make biochar. And I made this cone pit and I started burning. I did 2 burns. I've got about 10 gallons because I'm only burning little sticks in a small cone. I could do bigger. I probably need to do bigger, but it's like what we could handle in an hour or so with the kids. Let's burn a little bit. So we got about 10 gallons of biochar. And then what I did was I took the biochar and I soaked it in a solution of Dynagrow at about 3 to 4 times its regular strength. Now Dynagrow contains the 16 elements. It's used in hydroponic gardening. It is a nutrient solution of pure elements in a balance that would be like ideal plant growing conditions. So instead of tilling the charcoal right into the ground and letting it soak up everything in the ground, I'm letting it pre-soak. They call it charging it. Now you can charge it with all kinds of stuff. You could put it in compost tea. You could make a mix from leaf mold and make a bubbler and try to charge it with soil life. But I just decided to go and knowing that my soil is super nutrient poor, to allow it to soak up a good balance of nutrients that are already optimized for plant growth, and let it just soak it up for a few days. It's out there soaking right now. And then, once it's soaked it up, I will till it into a bed. And we will see what happens compared to a bed that doesn't have it. Now, it's a little weird because charging it could mess with the experiment. So I know why Stephen didn't charge his. It's because he wanted to really see how the experiment works out. But he says usually what happens is the first year or so, people have such bad results with it because it's not charged that they just give up and they say, oh, that was dumb, well, what I could do is just water the second bed a couple of times with Dynagrow nutrients and just, figure that was pretty even Steven, for the 2 beds and run them side by side. So biochar is part of it. Biochar allegedly can act like long-term humus in the soil. You can't get compost to stick around because it gets burned up in the sand, it gets eaten up by soil life, but you probably could keep that carbon around in the form of charcoal, which does not degrade quickly at all. So I'm smashing it up, some of it into dust and some of it into little bits like this big, and some of them are a little bigger, but I'm kind of just crushing and mashing that stuff down and then soaking it in a nutrient solution, and I'm going to till it in and see if it makes a long-term difference in the bed that I put it in. But that's not all. The other thing that really kind of has been in my mind for a long time is it was 5 or 6 years ago. I'm trying to remember when Steve Solomon mentioned putting clay in the compost pile. And clay allows the humic acid to stick around. It allows the humus to become persistent. You can't form good humus without some clay, is basically the idea. I don't know if that's completely true or not, but I do know that when you make compost in South Florida, it is very light and fluffy and dusty, and it disappears very fast. But when I made compost in Grenada, it was thick and sticky and strong, and it persisted. And that's because there's, the local soil had clay in it. So when I threw the local soil in to get that stuff started, it really sticks. It's not like gritty, light, fluffy compost that blows away and burns out. It sticks around. So today, for the very first time, I bought a bag of cat litter. Cat litter is it's unscented. It's the cheap stuff, the unscented, nothing in it but natural clay product. It is bentonite clay. Bentonite clay has a much higher exchange capacity than sand. So that ring compost thing that I made, that is going to get clay sprinkled into it. So I'm going to sprinkle clay deliberately in there to hopefully make the compost as it forms stick around much better. So that is my experiment on the compost side of things. So as you add the compost, you're adding the clay, but you're also making long-term persistent humus. And you also may change the soil geology a bit over time. A little bit of clay, a little bit of clay. So it will be interesting to see what that does after after a period of time. Sometimes people have the idea like you can mix clay into sand to make the sand stick a little better, or they'll say, oh, you can put sand into your clay to make your clay looser. And then other people will say, well, if you mix sand and clay, you basically get something like concrete, because you have now mixed a really fine grit with a large grit, and they fill the gaps in among each other, and you end up with a really hard, airless type of a mess. And there are soils like this in Georgia that are as hard as a rock. They're not really clay, and they're not really totally sand. They're a clay-sand mix, and they're horrible. Like the Columbus, Georgia area, I put in a garden there. Man alive, it was like gardening with a pickaxe. So there is something to that, but that's not always the case. I think there's a mix thing that there's probably a ratio that really works well. And my guess would be it would be something like 5% clay, to like 95% sand, or 10% clay, enough to grab and stick, but not necessarily, more than that. Another thing I would really like to do, which I think would be interesting, would be to not just use the bentonite clay, but to get clay that is from a fertile area, a very strong clay from a fertile area. So say the forests of Appalachia. In North Carolina, some of the biodiversity through the Blue Ridge Mountains area is some of the highest. I believe it's the highest in North America. It is incredible, the variety of fungi and trees and plants. Beautiful. You've never seen so many wildflowers and blackberries and insects and mushrooms. It's almost like tropical rainforest levels, but a deciduous forest. We used to go up there every summer when I was a kid. Actually, some of my family's over there right now. And it is a beautiful, beautiful environment. But there is this, this thick, rich red clay, and it's very hard, and it's got a lot of minerals in it. There's mining all over that area, mica and feldspar and all kinds of stuff. But what I was thinking is, if I go to visit family, go on a trip over to Appalachia, North Carolina, wouldn't it be interesting to go and get multiple buckets of that rich, red, living clay, and then come back and mix it up with some either well water or rainwater or pond water, so I don't have any chlorine or anything to it. Make a slurry, like make a ball of that clay and put it into a 5-gallon bucket full of nice water and make a clay slurry, and then water the compost pile with it. And when I wet the compost pile, just keep making that clay slurry. So I'm going to add the minerals, I'm going to add the higher exchange capacity. I think that's a really cool idea. You know, the azomite, right? Azomite is one of those mined substances. They mined it out west. I think it's in Utah. They have this beautiful, awesome mine for azomite, for all the minerals. I think that you could get soil from someplace else in small amounts and mix it in and change the geology a little bit. Maybe make some things stick. Nancy says, but David, Georgia has rich clay that they attribute to them growing those big, beautiful Walla Walla onions. Well, yes, Georgia has some of it too. I just haven't. It's not all of Georgia. There's an area here in Alabama too. There's some really rich areas. There's an area called the Black Belt that is a rich soil. Where I am has horrible soil, but I am not very far from good soil, and it goes in layers. But what I'd like is something that has a lot of clay, which is really opposite to this gritty sand that I have here, this rocky, gritty sand, you know. Carolyn, thank you very much. Carolyn sends a super chat tip for great information. Thank you for the tip. I much appreciate it. So, you know, there is a... How far up in the States am I? I am near Atmore. I have an Atmore address. So I am Baldwin County, to the north of Baldwin County. Not all the way to the Black Belt though. And there are, you know, like very poor. There's a place that I really want to go visit. It's called Weeks Bay Pitcher Plant Bog. The Weeks Bay Pitcher Plant Bog. It is just this bog of pitcher plants and wildlife. You know, it's a place where the soil is so bad the plants literally have to eat bugs. And we have a section on this property a little ways down into the woods that is just like that. There are pitcher plants actually growing back there. It's so cool. Yes, I have had boiled peanuts. Hey, Pastor Don. All right, locust and wild honey is Pastor Don's. So gotcha. That makes sense. Natasha says, why are plants blooming in the panhandle of Florida this time of year? Is it because of Hurricane Sally or the warm weather? No, it's just a cycle thing. I don't think that it's... Well, it depends on what you mean, because there are things that are blooming like azaleas, and I saw a fruit tree the other day. I don't remember which fruit tree it was that had a couple of blooms on it, and that's definitely the wrong time of year. But that happens. You know, if it gets a little chilly and it gets warm, you get a hurricane, you get flooding, things change. In the ups and downs of weather, you can get the bloom cycle initiated. But right now there's a ton of wildflowers, and I would just say it's just the natural cycle. They've grown through, you know, they're coming into the fall. Wildflowers are coming in now. Yeah. So yes, I love boiled peanuts. They're very good. Food Bear says, use the Korean natural farming technique of putting rice boxes in the soil, leaf molds to grow the fungi into the rice, then take it back to build inoculant your compost. Yeah, you could. It just seems like work to me. You know, and yeah, Corey, that's a good one. You ever thought of using sea minerals? I hear it has 90 plus trace minerals in it. I guess it's like dried seawater. Yes. Yes, I like that idea. I almost bought some the other day. Natasha says, trees that are blooming like Bradford pears and magnolias. Yeah, sometimes, you know, what happens is you get a stressful, like a dry period, and then you get a rain or a lot of rain, and it will set off the bloom cycle. It happens. I don't think it means that, you know, we're going to have a really hot summer and the ice caps are going to melt or anything, but no, I've seen it, Nancy. I have looked at it. You know, I've seen it with the potatoes and building the organisms and all that stuff. I just don't do recipes very well. But you can send it to me anyways. I actually have the Jadam book around here somewhere. It was inspiring to my first book, my first gardening thriller. Not my first book, but the first gardening thriller, Jack Barkley. But another thing, I got some hardware cloth, and because you know, we have very little compost right now for the sand, I am going to make a compost sifter and go out into the woods and scrape up some of the leaf mold, and so I can take the top layer of sticks and pine needles off and dig down a little bit and sift what's underneath, and then use that leaf mold. We'll harvest some compost that way. But I have a set of beds that I have not done anything with yet, and so what I want to do is have a control bed. I want to do a bed where I put alfalfa meal in it. I want to do a bed with biochar. I want to do a bed that uses Steve's fertilizer mix. I want to do a bed that has 10-10-10. I want to have a bed that has like just cow manure, you know, and one that has just compost, and then we will look at them. And maybe we'll do a bed with Dynagrow too, I don't know. But I want to grow the same vegetables across like 8 beds and have them done with different methods so we can look. You know, there's a couple at my church, they told me, they were like, oh, we grew so many beans this year. We had, you know, they said we gave away like 50 pounds of beans at a time. And I said, man alive, what'd you guys do? Well, we gave them 10-10-10. Hey, they're growing food, they're giving it away. But it's like, man, why am I working so hard? 10-10-10. 10-10-10. I could go out and pay like $12 for some 10-10-10. 1 pound per 100 square feet. No. Must resist. But I'll do one bed. Yeah, that's right. Scott says, don't forget 1313 from Old Alabama Gardener. Anyhow, it's pretty funny. How did you grow so much beautiful produce? 10-10-10. Yeah, my voice is getting scratchy. I have had a cold for a few days. That's why I told Rachel, I said, you know, tell everybody I have the corona. I don't think I have the corona, but you never know. I'm very healthy, so if I got it, it probably wouldn't be much of anything. And I took a lot of zinc. I made tea from Ganoderma mushrooms, and I drank a bunch of it. And I drank gin and tonics, you know, for the tonic, quinine, right? Took vitamin C, took all that stuff. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, if you can get the shredded leaves used right, and the leaves will break down on their own. I am layering it with, you know, I am layering it on purpose. You don't have to have a bunch of green nitrogen material to do it. You can use a lawn fertilizer. Yes, that will do it faster. See, what happens if you allow the leaves to break down on their own over time, it can take a couple of years, particularly with oaks. I mean, pine needles can be even worse. They're terrible. It takes time because there's a lot of lignans in there, and they don't break down easily. If you can shred them first, it's a lot faster because you get more surface area. It tears them up. It opens a lot more channels for the rot to take over, which is really good. But you get a high quality leaf mold compost that way. But if you need compost faster, like say for your spring garden, that's when you say, okay, I'm going to balance my carbon and my nitrogen ratios to kick it up. So you can save urine and water it with urine water. That'll do. You can, you know, you can layer it. Chicken manure is really good. High nitrogen fertilizer is fine. It's just, you just need a nitrogen source. You can even take ammonia Ammonia. Now, ammonia is actually a natural substance. I know it's like you think it's going to burn your lungs out or something, and it will. But ammonia is a natural substance. It's a super high source of nitrogen. So you can take like a cup of ammonia and put it into a few gallons of water and pour that over the pile, and that ammonia will help start breaking the carbon down too. There's all kinds of cool tricks you can do. But for natural stuff, even just getting your green kitchen scraps in there will make a difference. I'll throw everything in there. If we had soup that spoils in the fridge, that goes in there. Doesn't matter. But keeping it wet and giving it enough nitrogen will make it go faster. And if it's shredded, it will be even faster. And if you turn it regularly, it's even faster. But still, there's a long period, with the oaks and stuff. It's still going to take longer. If you have like sweet gum leaves or maple leaves, somebody was saying sweet gum the other day. It was a great one. Because they break down really fast. Maple leaves, some of these leaves, hackberry leaves, they break down really fast. But the oaks are harder, they take longer. Oh, let's see what we got here. SFG Adrenaline. This is my first time seeing your channel, which just randomly popped up and recommended. Well, hey, welcome. Glad you're here. Anana H says, which unscented cat litter clay did you buy from the pet store? No, I just bought it from the dollar store today, like a 20-pound bag. I am a gardener. I teach gardening that is outside the box, and we make a lot of jokes and do the stuff that you normally won't see on gardening channels. Like randomly break into a rap in the middle of demonstrating how to do a raised bed or something. So, yes, that's right. The cheap, non-scented cat litter, that's bentonite. And so if you throw that bentonite into your compost pile, let's see. Throw some bentonite into your compost and make that humus stick. Go and get that cheapo stuff from the dollar store really quick. It's just bentonite which changes the exchange capacity of your soil. If you've got lousy sand, throw it in, it'll make that humus so worthwhile. Throw some bentonite, cheap cat litter in your compost today. Put your compost in your garden and do. I lost the rhyme at the end there, but do is always safe. Oh, thank you very much, Karen sends a super chat. Got around, have a good evening. Have a good evening, Karen. It is getting late, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Alan says the impact on flavor and nutrient density and the salts killing soil life should possibly be considered above yields argument. If you put 10, 10, 10 on your garden and you get a bunch of food, if it's junky because you have only NPK, dude, you better think again about that 10, 10, 10. You better think again about 10, 10, 10. If I were to use 10, 10, 10, I'd try to add that micronutrients again, and I'd probably mix some compost so I don't burn everything out. Only time I really used that stuff was when I was tired and it was feeling rough to watch my citrus sit around for years. I used that 10, 10, 10 on my oranges. I suppose if you were to consider what they did in their garden, maybe a zillion pounds of food might still be better, dude, than buying stuff that's filled with pesticides. That's where I have to draw the line. The pesticides are worse than 10, 10, 10. 10, 10, 10. That's what I would say. I mean, if you had micronutrients, and remember it's really, really bad soil, it's better, it's not ideal. I'm glad they're growing their own food, you know, but it's a tricky thing. You have to decide. Scott said, just bought Compost Everything Grow Diet, and I can't wait to read it. Oh, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Compost Everything was really the book that I wrote in response to how toxic commercial farming and the weed killers and everything had made the supply stream. I bought this manure from a dairy, and it killed a bunch of my garden beds. And I was like, what the heck? And it took me like 2 weeks to figure out what had gone wrong, and that there was a chemical that was being sprayed. And it was filled with a toxin called aminopyrrolid. And aminopyrrolid is a long-term persistent herbicide, which can be, sprayed on grass. The cow eats it. You can then harvest the manure, compost the manure, and then put the manure in your garden 6 months or a year later, and it will still kill your garden. That's how bad it is. So I wrote Compost Everything after having, how do you get enough compost? How do you get enough compost when, hay is being sprayed with this stuff now and manure is being sprayed? What else can you compost? How can you stretch your compost? How could you take a small amount of fertility and spread it over a large area? So that's where Compost Everything came from. Grow or Die is exactly what it is. It's the good guide to survival gardening. That is gardening on what you have available, turning a lawn into food in a very short period of time under tough situations. How to find seeds in the pantry that will still grow and that kind of stuff. Sundays and Sandy Toes says, sprinkle out black-eyed peas all over my beds. They grew like crazy, then plucked all the tops off. Is that what I was supposed to do to make nitrogen? Yeah, that'll make some nitrogen. I usually wait until they get as much biomass as possible before they're really, when they first start setting pods or they've got green pods on them, that's probably your highest level of nitrogen. But just getting the sprouts in there, even if you, this is a cool thing, if you make sprouts, you take that sprout water after you make sprouts, so you've got the rinse water from the sprouts, water plants with that. It's a growth stimulant. It's insane because it soaks up the growth stimulants from the seeds that you're sprouting, and you can pour it on other plants and use it like a fertilizer because it will make them go nuts. Derek, you're smoking good old homegrown tobacco. Good work. Shane wore the same shirt and hat. Bro-fist. Let's see what we got here. Christos the boss says, not what the title said, but okay, I'll stick around. Yeah, we're still rolling on it here. But thank you very much for the super chat, Sunny Days and Sandy Toes. Just getting that life on the ground makes a big difference. Till and the black-eyed peas, that's right. And now Cook says, hi David, how do I turn clay into soil? My 20 by 60 garden bed is just clay and I don't get good yields. How can I change this? One of the best things you can do, on the chemical side of things. Now I don't mean chemical like chemicals. I just mean making a chemical change in that clay is to add gypsum. Go get gypsum and add it to your soil. If you can fork it in, so much better. Till it in, whatever. If you can do that, the gypsum will make a difference. It will help flocculate the clay, meaning it'll make it looser, it'll make it separate better. It will allow it to be looser. When I was in Tennessee, I didn't try the gypsum thing, but what I did was I deep mulched over it in the fall, and by the next fall, the ground underneath where I had deep mulched. So I laid down cardboard and I covered it with fall leaves and I covered it with straw and I covered it with coffee grounds, whatever I could find, like this deep, and I just let it rot. It loosened the soil up significantly, and the worms got into that area and really fed on it and turned it under, and they added the organic matter up and down through the soil. It was really excellent, and that made a big difference. So deep mulching can be good, but if you have problems with slugs, snails, it can be a real issue. But if you can get organic matter into it and you can add gypsum, those two things will make a big difference. Makes a big difference. But that organic matter is very useful. Don says, compost everything is awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Yep, this is the time to grab bags of leaves, folks. Very good. Grab it. I mean, when they're putting out those bags by the side of the road, grab that stuff. You need that stuff. Grab as many as you can. I grabbed like dozens and dozens and dozens of bags back when I was in Tennessee, again, to cover the clay and to rot it down. Plus, I kept those bags out by my compost area. So every time I would throw in some kitchen scraps, I would mulch with all these leaves over the top of it. So I'd throw kitchen scraps into my big compost bin, which was an old refrigerator that I had taken the door off of, and I just put a piece of plywood over the top. Old refrigerator. I would throw the kitchen scraps in there and then throw leaves over the top. So I always had that excellent brown material, you know, for the carbon. Yeah, Daddy's Orchid Journey says slugs and snails are destroying my alocasias right now. They are a big problem, and if there's plenty of spaces for them to hide, it's a problem. Kinja51 says, bacterial leaf spot is invading my yard with my peppers and some other plants. Last year was somewhat bad, this year worse. Any tips to beat it back? Yes, the harsher way would probably be to take a little, you know, a little bit of copper sulfate, but I probably wouldn't do that. You know what I would do? If you can get plain yogurt or kefir and mix it with well water, like water that's not chlorinated, shake it up really good, and use that as a foliar spray, it can knock it back because it will actually compete with it. Even if you had like real sauerkraut, like homemade pickles, you know, the ones that are actually fermented, not just, you know, not just done with vinegar poured into it. So like you make your own pickles, you put pickles in some salt brine. That's good. Take a little bit of that brine and put it into some water. Now, not much because it's got salt in it. But with the yogurt, take a tablespoon or so and put it in a quart of water, rainwater, you know, pond water, some water like that, and then spray the leaves with it, and it should knock it back. I knocked out blight from my pumpkins that way before, and it worked very well. It was surprisingly well. So let me know if that works. I'd be interested. I knocked it out with compost tea before. Okay, let me see here. Don says, speaking of gypsum, I did an experiment with sheet mulching with some scrap drywall, and stuff grew the next year with no ill effects that I noticed. Yeah, it actually, you know, it provides calcium as well. I just would worry about that Chinese drywall. Deep mulch and ducks would be no slugs and snails. That's true, and they will happily go through there, but they will get into your garden too and make a mess. But like in an orchard situation, I would love to have ducks through it. Hugh says, won't do much the first year, but the next half of the chips, the next year, the half of the chips will be gone, and we'll have a band of nice soil in the chips. Yeah, absolutely. That was what happened. That's what happened with me too. Dude, Amy says, sounds like you have limitless experiments you want to try out. Are there any you would suggest for to try out? I'm growing organic vegetables on 3 acres. Oh, wow. Good work. Share findings for science. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens if, you know, if you tried tilling some biochar into a section of it. See if that area grows better. If you can sacrifice a little bit, you know, we'll have different soils. I would like to see more actual gardeners experimenting with biochar to see what it does. And thank you, Amy. Welcome. Dude, Amy is now a new member. Yeah! Now you get to use the emoji of the machete. The awesome machete emoji. And the bufemus emoji. And the green thumb. It's really funny. Sunny Day Sandy shows, I'm loving the shopping list for this weekend. Gypsum, cat liver, some cat litter, and some more black-eyed peas. Maybe some cottonseed meal if I can find it, and grab some leaf bags for my neighbors. Got it! LOL. I know, I just got 2 bags of kelp meal from the UPS truck. I found a better price than I could get it anywhere else. Seven Springs Farm had the best price that I'd seen. Seven Springs Farm Organic Farming and Gardening Supplies LLC. I got 2 bags of kelp meal from them for all the micronutrients. I've got to stop spending money on nutrients. I don't even have any food yet. Trudy says, I made kimchi pickles this summer. So good and great for your gut. Yeah, I eat kimchi for breakfast every day. My wife makes it by the gallon or 2, and it's very good. Oh, cool. Kinjo is eating real fermented pickles. It makes a big difference. They're so much better. Scott sends a super chat. Thank you very much. I just purchased my first bags of cottonseed meal and kelp meal. Whoa, thought you gardened on the cheap. Dig your channel, Scott. Yes, I like to garden on the cheap, but I have to do an experiment. So yes, it's expensive. The cottonseed meal I only paid, the most I paid for it, I paid $14.95 for a couple of bags, and the other place I got them for like 12, and I got them 13 somewhere else. So it's like, you know, it's all right. You don't actually have to use a lot of cottonseed meal. You don't use a lot of kelp meal either. You know, you may spend as much as $100 for 50 pounds of kelp meal, but you're only going to put, you know, like a quart of it into 100 square feet of garden bed. So if you're, it's not as bad when you spread it out. But boy, it's rough. But this is experimenting right now, and I'm kind of feeling the pressure of being in this bad soil, being in a rental, having to start over again. I had tons of food where I was, tons of stuff prepared, and you never know how the country's going to go and what's going to blow up next. And I want to be ahead of the curve. I want functioning, lots of gardens working right away. So I'm doing as many experiments and trying as many things as possible to try and eliminate mistakes as fast as possible this time, and hopefully bypass, you know, long-term soil building type stuff that takes a couple of years like I would normally do. So I'm like, okay, if I can buy it in a bag, this time I'm going to do that, because I really, I feel like we all should be growing a lot of food right now. I mean, this Corona thing this year was nuts. We don't know what's going to happen after the election. A lot of people are angry and frustrated, and there's, you know, I mean, we had shipping supply line issues a little bit this year. A lot of us got locked inside. I don't know how things are going to go. So I feel like getting the amendments and extra of everything right now, extra seeds. I'm buying my seeds early. I'm buying extra amendments. I'm putting them on the porch, you know. And I'm not giving you my address. And you know, I'd like to have a lot of extra stuff just in case. But I also have never given Steve's methods, Steve Solomon's Intelligent Gardener methods, a really fair shake, because it was too complicated and expensive for me to mess with. But now that I have him, you know, on speed dial basically, so I can call him and ask him questions, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do it. We'll experiment and we'll see, because he claims that the flavor and the quality of the vegetables are so high, and you'll feel so good eating them, that it's completely worth the extra effort. So we shall see. But you're right. I mean, generally I do everything on the cheap. You know, like I drove the tractor around the first day I borrowed the tractor. I was like, wow, I can do so much work with the tractor. And then I looked up what they cost. It was like, I like other people's tractors. And generally what I do is just try to gather all the inexpensive stuff I can and garden with it. But we'll do that too. You know, I mean, you'll definitely see me making biochar in the backyard and sifting leaf mold from the woods and stuff. And once I get some chickens, Lord willing, I will have lots of chicken manure, which is great fertilizer. But, you know, if you don't have time, you have to spend money. If you don't have money, you spend time. And right now I feel like we don't have time. Food Bear says, I'm about to buy at least 2 Dutch ovens to make small batches of biochar. That'll be fun. Kevin Tomlinson says, David, some of my older plants, the Roma tomatoes, have black spots on them. Do you think they're okay to eat? Yeah, I think so. It was common. You know, if you've got a little bad spot on the fruit or something, just cut that part off. That means it wasn't sprayed with tons of chemicals. You know, generally, it's fine. Its biology is trying to eat it. You can eat it too. And I don't even worry about a little bit of mold or anything. I mean, if I see a little bit of mold, I'll just cut that area out. No worries. Have I sung Sweet Home Alabama yet? No, not really. Carolyn says, make your Davis fetid swamp water. It'll be ready in 2 weeks. Get yourself a big drum to do it. Yep, that's on my list, Carolyn. I just need I need a good nitrogen source for it. I've actually been saving up shrimp shells and chicken bones and scraps to make a batch of it. It's happening. Big X Production says how to fix the Florida gray sand soil. We were talking about that earlier. We're experimenting with biochar and compost that is mixed with clay in order to make it stick around. And also deep mulching makes a difference, but it doesn't stick, which is why we're trying to do the clay thing to see if you can get a little bit to stick, and not a ton. Hey, Stone Ape Farmer, you made it just in time for me to leave. No! Christopher's late too. Oh no! And Elle says, I want to make raised beds for long-term plants. If I fill my beds with logs and sticks and leaves and hay, do I need to add dirt at all? Yeah, you're going to have to, I mean, at some point you're going to have to add some dirt or else there's nothing for them to grab into. And watch out with hay, because hay is often sprayed with herbicides that can damage the garden for the next year or so. So watch out for hay, unless it's hay like from your own property or from a field you absolutely know has not been sprayed with anything. But what I would do when I made raised beds, I would often bury hunks of log in there. I'd throw the old paper plates in there, kitchen scraps, all kinds of things, and just make a pit and fill it up and throw sticks from the yard and leaves and whatever junk I had. And then the last 6 inches or so, I put good soil on it. EDD says, can medication in urine be bad for compost? Probably not. I mean, if you're taking it as a medication, you're just going to be retaking it again, I guess. I mean, it's already non-toxic enough for you to eat it. I wouldn't worry about it that much. Most stuff breaks down. But I first of all, what I would try to do is just quit medications. I don't believe in them. Karen says, do you want me to send you some mimosa? It grows fast and spreads fast. Yeah, mimosa is useful. I need some various nitrogen fixer seeds. That would be good. There's almost no nitrogen fixers here. I've not seen any yet. I would like some Lucana leucocephala seeds too, if somebody has those. And I don't know if you're probably not allowed to ship water hyacinth. I really need some water hyacinth. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are on that stuff. Stone Dave Farmer says, I saw your charcoal pit on Instagram the other day. It looks just like mine. Fantastic. Great minds think alike. Aldrin Phillip says, what's biochar? Biochar is just charcoal. Just charcoal. You just make charcoal from biological materials, you know, leaves, sticks, grass, whatever, and you burn it with less oxygen. You know, you smother it somehow, or put it out before it completely turns to ash, and then you can add it to the soil. So, I was on Ill Sins' recommended too. Well, welcome. Nice to have you here. I don't know why, but I'm glad you're here. Let's see here. Becky says, my beets always die. Always. Spring, summer, fall. They always die. What am I doing wrong? Your beets always die. Your beets always die. Beets always die. My beets always die. Can't stop the beats. Oh wait, they're already stopped. Can't stop those beats. Oh, it's too late. My beats always die. I'm gonna have to cry. I put those Detroit dark red beets in the ground. Guess what I found? They all died. Beets are just one of those plants that always die. Oh, I hate those beets. Wish that I could drop those beets. I hope that was helpful. Beets are touchy. It's hard to say why they're dying without without an idea what your soil looks like. But I would say beets are one of the, particularly like in Florida or in poor soil, beets are one of those higher maintenance type of plant. They have a, they're pokey to get started. They sometimes just sit there and they don't make good roots, or they get really woody. Sometimes they are prone to rot issues. It doesn't rain enough, or it rains too much. There's all kinds of problems. Anon H says, how much clay would you mix in per cubic foot? I would probably just sprinkle it. But Becky, you can always drop me an email, david@floridafoodforests.com. Tell me what your soil looks like and what's going on. And you are banned, Little Tris. Bye-bye. Let's see. Biochar is charcoal, but it has to hit like 850 degrees Fahrenheit. Some people say it needs to be hit with steam to really open. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Karen says get some pigeon peas. Maybe in the spring. They are good. Yes, Matthew says, David, that was a big bucket of seeds the other day. It would be fun to make tunnels out of the vines in that field. Yeah, it would be awesome. I love that kind of thing. Scott says, I got water spinach seeds. Send me your address. I think I have my address. Let me see if I can find it. I think I have it. I'm going to find it. I just got a new one. I don't know what happened to my address. Oh, I can't find it. I'm sorry. It's in my newsletter. Oh, brother. I'm sorry. I'll have to put it into a future one. Derek can get me the hyacinth. Shh. I'm gonna have to start putting the PO box below my thing. I like to get letters. I always like actual mail. It's cool. I got a really great drawing from a kid earlier this year that really encouraged me. Thanks for encouraging me to garden. I love gardening. It's like, that's so cool. Yep, you got to charge the char. All right, guys. I'm gonna let you go. I've got to do something else. But let's see. Let's sing a really complicated song that will get us demonetized. And before that, I want to thank Kevin very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. I appreciate the tips. Seed money. Moving back to the this States was remarkably expensive. Let me see. I'm trying to catch up now. I mean, being without internet and moving and crazy. I'm doing fine, but it's just, every time you move, there's a whole bunch of stuff you got to do. I got to rebuy all kinds of things that I should have had already. Like, why don't I have garden gloves? Oh, that's right. I think I left them. Let's see if we can sing this song. This is a complicated song, folks. It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair. Wait a minute, where's it go? But her mommy is yelling no. told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen. Now she walks through a sunken dream to the sea with the clearest view, and she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a sad before, for she's lived it 10 times or more. Oh boy, why do I pick the hard ones? She could spit in the eyes of fools as they ask her to focus on sailor fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's a freaky show. Take a look at the lumber beating up the runger. That's enough. That's mangling it. Oh my gosh, it's not worth getting demonetized for such a horrible performance. Alright guys, unbelievable. Sing a ballad about a drunken slug. It's the end of the world as we know it. That's a good one. David played guitar, jamming good with Wade and Gilly and the spiders from Mars. He played it left hand, but made it too far. Became a special man, and we were David's band. Oh, that's pretty good. If it's bad enough, the content ID won't match it. That's good. That's funny. Alright guys, you all have a good night. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's Super Chats. I want to thank Carolyn and Karen, Sunny Days, Sandy Toes, Dude, it's Amy, Scott, and Kevin Tomlinson. And I also want to thank Dude, it's Amy for becoming a member. Much appreciated. Welcome! I appreciate the members that stick around, and occasionally we even do like a live stream just for members where we're talking about a topic, or we'll do a book reading or something fun like that, and I'll post videos just for members as well sometimes. So you have a good night, and until next time, may your thumbs always be green. Oh, and tomorrow I've got another video coming. I did something cool today, so I'll share it with you then. Catch you next time.